ever since ROUSD launched, we have been going all in on the stablecoin discussions, but it's not because of just ROUSD. It's actually because of all of the additional announcements that we saw happen after ROUSD did launch. Like, for an example, this one where ICE and Circle were exploring using USDC stablecoin, and this is all based around derivatives. Bitwise even did highlight that derivatives are a $730 trillion market. One of the largest players in the market is looking more into stable coins. Are you paying attention? And of course, the source 730 trillion figure is notional value of the over-the-counter derivatives in June of 2024 per the BIS. But what's crazy about this is that, we're starting to see, a big push on Circle really kind of getting in on the stablecoin game in a big way at a time where Ripple did put in a bid to acquire Circle. If we see that happen, and if we actually see Ripple, become a much bigger piece of this space because of that acquisition, imagine all the connections and networking that they also get under its belt just by, acquiring Circle. Like, for example, IC, because ICE is looking to explore using USDC stablecoin through Circle. But what's crazy about all this is we also go over here to a more recent announcement from Good Morning Crypto, which is breaking. Meta is in talks with a number of crypto companies to use stablecoins 2025. Now again, we go back to ROUSD here because, if we're thinking about some companies, the only few that we could think about is Tether, Ripple, or Circle. There's no other options. I mean, there definitely is, but we're talking about prominent regulated fully compliant options that Facebook would want to use. And the only ones I think about here is either Circle or Ripple. Don't even include Tether because of, the concerns. But we don't know if they are in talks with Ripple at all, but it wouldn't surprise me one bit. But check this video clip out. Meta is now in talks with a number of crypto companies as it considers introducing stablecoins as a way to manage payouts. This is coming from a new report in Fortune magazine. It comes years after Meta's earlier attempt to remember at a cryptocurrency blew up Fortune, saying that Meta's recent outreach to crypto companies focuses on the ability of stable coins to pay individuals in different regions without the high fees that would traditionally associated with other forms of payment. It also says that Meta has now hired a new vice president of product with crypto experience to help move those discussions along. So you remember that whole adventure that they went on, that ultimately Libra that didn't make it, but this may be the next incarnation. You remember I got a lot of play when I said this is like the dumbest thing I've ever. It's centralized. It was compared to Bitcoin. There was nothing Libra had to offer. I said it the day it was announced and nothing did coming up. President Trump looking at. Now, of course, Meta is not the only one looking into stablecoins. We know at this point almost every single big player out there is now looking at stablecoins. They just became 1% of the total global money. M2 supply, aka the money supply, which is a huge deal. On top of that, we just rivaled Visa and MasterCard in terms of monthly volume. Like, when we think about what's really going on here, stablecoins are becoming too big to ignore, which is why all of these big companies and all of the big players are now talking about stablecoins in a much bigger way. Now, also to really kind of build upon this, we go over here to this post from the CEO of Mooney, which was stablecoins settled over $6 trillion last year, just 3% of global cross-border payments. This is only the beginning. Traditional remittance services charge anywhere between 6 to 9% in fees and can take days to settle. Stablecoins move instantly with minimal fees and the ability to transact anywhere with an internet connection. We have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to pass stablecoin legislation that empowers competition choice and reinforces the strength of the US dollar. This shouldn't be a partisan issue. It also shouldn't be about advancing the special interest of any one particular stablecoin. Lawmakers must act now before the US falls behind. And I think that we are going to get stablecoin legislation fully signed into law by the end of, if I had to take a wild guess, July. I know that I said to really kind of focus on August. I do think that August is still a focus, but I think that with all of the accelerated shift happening around crypto and the big focus put on stable coins, I think that this happens sooner rather than later, but we have to wait and see. But this definitely will be a big catalyst around stablecoin initiatives and growth within the US, which will also put a big, I think it will put a big spotlight on other nations really kind of trying to catch up with the US around stablecoin initiatives as well. But outside of that, we also go over here to what Zero Hedge recently posted, which was, for the first time ever, the Treasury Borrowing Advisory Committee discusses stablecoins as a new payment mechanism and potentially a huge source of demand for US bills. Key observations. Stablecoin issuers currently hold greater than 120 billion in T-bills. Rapid growth in stablecoins could lead to incremental demand of 900 billion for T-bill size of bill market. Today is about 6.4 trillion. If stablecoins experience exponential growth, demand for USS should be correlated likely at the expense of bank deposits. Stablecoins could grow to $2 trillion by 2030. In response to continued market and regulatory breakthroughs, stablecoins could disrupt traditional banks by drawing away deposits. And yeah, I mean, listen, when we think about what's ongoing around stablecoin initiatives and stablecoins themselves, they only continue to make more noise than ever before. And this is why we need to get regulations right. And we also have to usher them in now. There's no time to wait, especially if we want the US dollar to be a dominant force within the digital, system. Now, Chainlink also quoted this from Zero Hedge and said, once stablecoins held significant amounts of US treasuries, they became too important for regulators to ignore. This is Sergey explaining why every type of tokenized asset will also gain regulatory clarity. As they grow, check it out. So the thing that's happened with stablecoins is going to happen with every other tokenized asset type. Stablecoins only became interesting to the government and only became interesting to society at large once enough of the underlying asset, the US Treasury, was in the stablecoin format. So once stablecoins passed 0.5% or 1% of total US treasuries, then everyone started running around and caring about them and worrying about what is this format or what is this holder of US treasuries. Firstly, that's going to happen with every other asset class and every other asset type, that once you get to 0.5%, 1%, 2%, 5%, depending on the asset class, everyone in that asset class will be like, whoa, what is this thing that is now eating up all of these underlying assets as it converts them into this tokenized form? So that's something you're going to see generally, and you're going to see more bills, more legislation, and more rulemaking from the regulators about those different asset types. But for stablecoins, it's now reached a high enough level where it's become a key issue. So they need to make regulatory clarity happen. They need to make legislative clarifications on how it should be used properly, because it's basically big enough from here. As it becomes bigger, it will only be even more important that you have regulatory clarity about how to use it, because the US wants as many stable coins as possible to be backed by the US dollar and US treasuries. So if you actually accelerate the issuance of stable coins as the US government, you're accelerating distribution of the US dollar, which is adding and contributing to US dollar supremacy, US dollar reserve currency status, which is basically their main goal around here, which from their point of view is a very logical, very correct goal. So the stablecoin dynamic now has gone from some cottage industry thing that no one understands to big and important enough that we want more of it, because it has an impact on US dollar reserve currency status and US dollar supremacy and US dollar distribution, which is a very powerful positive thing. So yeah, I mean, listen, this is exactly why we're going to see the US really kind of go all in. I would argue on not just stablecoin initiatives, but you got to think about it like this. Okay, if we start to see the US dollar stablecoins dominate specific markets around tokenization, we are going to see the US go all in on not just stablecoins, but tokenization, which they're kind of starting to do so now. But it's the fact that every single type of tokenized asset will now gain regulatory clarity as well once they start to grow and become, too big to ignore. That's exactly what happened with stablecoins. I mean, listen, everyone was trying to predict the next big thing. Ripple told us back in 2022 that the stablecoin race was on. From that point on, we just continued to watch as stablecoins grew and grew and grew. And it got to the point where it's like, all right, well, this is a serious issue. We need to focus on this. This is becoming a reality. We need to get regulations, in place for this. And that's exactly what they're preparing for right now. It's no different with anything other than, stable coins as well. But what's crazy is that Ripple has been at the forefront of this forever. And even now, a lot of the big players from Ripple, like Reese Merrick, for an example, did put out a post talking about how it was a fantastic week in Dubai at Token 2049. Overall, I'd say the market is definitely maturing. Here are some key takeaways. There was a big focus institutional adoption and tokenization. Discussions highlighted growing institutional interest in tokenization. RWAS conversations touched on stablecoins' role in DeFi ecosystems, with innovations like yield-bearing stablecoins and cross-chain and choppability gaining traction. The event highlighted stablecoins as a backbone for emerging financial applications, from remittances to decentralized payments. AI and blockchain synergy panels emphasize the convergence of AI and blockchain driving innovation in decentralized ecosystems, regulatory clarity and role. The UAE plays the UAE's crypto-friendly regulations, attracting tons of international businesses to expand operations in the UAE. Quick shout out to the Ripple team and a few others who were captured in the image below, who hustled all week. I'm excited about what's to come. Now, on top of that, right, we know that Ripple has been working with policymakers and even the government players and even the organizations as well to make sure that they are a part of these big discussions. And I think that that's exactly why when we think about ROUSD and we think about Ripple, it makes sense for them to be plug and played within the US system, because we go all the way back to like April of 2024 when Ripple was in the same meeting with the I think it was the Secretary of Treasury at the time, Nellie Ling, right? She was there. And she was also there with Chainlink. What's crazy about that is, now Chainlink is tapped in with almost every single player in the space, including, of course, the XRP ledger, I believe. So when we think about Chainlink being there in that meeting with both Ripple and even Stellar, I'm pretty sure Ando might not have been. Oh no, I know that another, I think, Circle was there. So when we think about all these connections to some of these big players, like, they understand exactly where we're headed. Chainlink understands exactly where we're headed. We're headed towards a regulated market where the players that are urging for regulations, that are trying to work with regulators, they will be the most successful ones. And that actually leaves me off on my last clip here, which was showing up matters in 1 minute. Lauren Abeliv, Ripple's global co-head of policy, explains why proactive engagement in education with regulators and policymakers in Washington, D.C. and globally is essential to building a smart, responsible framework for crypto innovation. And this also proves to us exactly why it's so crucial that Ripple is involved with all of these heavy discussions, which they are engaged with these big players they're talking to, these regulators and policymakers. They're planning ahead, and they're connecting. So check this out. I feel good. I'm ready. I'm an athlete. So let's do this thing. Hi, I'm Lauren, the live, and this is Crypto. In a minute, it all comes down to my favorite quote from the West Wing decisions are made by those who show up. And in 2024, Ripple showed up. It was the Biden administration, and we were under Gary Gensler's reign of terror, where he issued over 100 different enforcement actions across the crypto industry. That is not regular order. So Ripple decided to really invest its time and energy in the political process, working tirelessly to educate bipartisan members on our technology and our work around consumer protection. We went to the DNC. We invested into the RNC, and we participated throughout the campaign cycle. And now we have the most pro-crypto Congress as well as a pro-crypto president. We attended the inauguration as along with the inaugural White House Crypto Summit. We are working with Congress as it puts pen to paper on bipartisan legislation that will define the next 100 years of our industry. And we are excited about all the potential that there is to come. Boom, how is that? And yeah, I mean, Ripple is actively engaged with all of these policymakers, these regulators. They've been planning ahead, like I said, and they've been tapped in around this admin. They've been having discussions with specific players from this admin, which I find very interesting. But at the end of the day, right, like as we start to see more and more adoption of stable coins and tokenization and all of those things, you know, the more we need regulations. And right now regulations are at the top of the list in terms of priority number one, which is only going to highlight more and more of the value behind these utility-based projects like, of course, Ripple and XRP, which is why I still think that XRP is going to be extremely valuable going forward. Regardless of if, you know, the utility bull run starts now or later or next year or even 2 years down the road, we know XRP is going to continue to prosper in the space and become a much bigger piece of this space, because it's becoming a much bigger piece of the trading space and the traditional world itself outside of crypto, which cannot be overlooked. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys definitely leave a like, subscribe, notifications on for more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord in description below. And with that being said, guys, Nick, thanks for watching. Peace out.